United Kingdom's upper house of Parliament, the House of Lords, passed a bill this past week which basically would deport any undocumented or illegal migrant to the East African nation of Rwanda. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has made this a cornerstone issue. He's often emphasized the need for stopping the inflow of small boats that are coming into the country, carrying migrants who are often trying to escape the violence or persecution or instability back in their home countries. However, this plan for sending migrants to Rwanda has been a very divisive and contentious one. Last year, the British Supreme Court had put this controversial bill on hold. It had called the Rwanda policy illegal. The bill that passed this week is the Sunak government's way of circumventing last year's Supreme Court ruling. On Crux Decode, we explain why some people see this as a controversial move, why Rishi Sunak and his government have thrown their weight behind this move and are hinging their election campaign on this issue. Can the Labour Party, which is the main opposition party and which is currently well ahead in the polls, find a resonant counter-narrative to the Stop the Boats movement, which many in the Conservative side have made their singular focus? The House of Lords, the upper house of the British Parliament, passed what is called the Safety of Rwanda Asylum and Immigration Bill this week. It essentially says that Rwanda is a safe third country for the purposes of removing those individuals who fled from their home countries and entered England illegally. According to the government's fact sheet, the bill was introduced in order to respond to the Supreme Court's concerns. It will allow the British Parliament to confirm the status of the Republic of Rwanda as a safe third country. In its ruling last year, the British Supreme Court had said that Rwanda cannot be relied upon to treat asylum seekers well. After all, Rwanda's record from the genocide back in the 1990s is still a sore point in Western liberal societies. Citing Rwanda's abysmal human rights record, including enforced disappearances and torture, the Supreme Court of Britain said that Rwanda practiced something called refoulement, or the practice of sending migrants back to their unsafe home countries. The court held that there was a risk of asylum seekers being subjected to the same threats and safety concerns which made them flee in the first place. In response to this argument, the Rwanda bill was passed after the British government signed a fresh treaty with Rwanda. As per this treaty, they would beef up protections for migrants starting December 2023. Declaring Rwanda to be a safe third country, the bill is an attempt to ensure that migrants are sent back to Rwanda with its record intact. Back in April of 2022, the then British Prime Minister Boris Johnson had also signed a deal with the Rwandan government to allow the UK to send some of the asylum seekers there. Johnson had hailed this move as one that would save countless lives from human trafficking, given the dangerous circumstances in which these people try to enter the UK. Under the scheme, people arriving in Britain as undocumented stowaways in trucks or boats would have to be flown about 6,500 kilometers back to Rwanda. Once they were there, they would be eventually assessed for further resettlement. The timeline for being deported to Rwanda could be as short as just another couple of weeks. The UK government, in turn, has paid the Rwandan government millions of pounds for housing as well as integrating these migrants as part of a pilot scheme. It was a project that was meant to last for just 5 years, but subsequently, successive Conservative governments have talked about increasing the duration of this policy. The process of integration would also theoretically involve supporting the migrants with access to training, healthcare, education, shelter, all of which in a bid to try and help them resettle. It has been estimated that the British government has paid its Rwandan counterpart close to £300 million as part of this deal. And here's the rub. This is even before this plan has actually come into action. Remember, this plan has faced its own legal challenges and criticisms, Now it will come into action, and even before that, millions of pounds have been transferred from the British government to the Rwandan government. Earlier this week, the Guardian newspaper in Britain reported that the government would be paying another additional £50 million if the bill were to be passed. And that is a point that the opposition Labour Party is hoping to exploit in a country which officially says it's broke and has been in recession for the last few months. Meanwhile, the United Nations Refugee Agency, the UNHCR, has said that illegal migrants must not be treated like commodities and transferred abroad for processing. According to a statement put out by the UNHCR, it says it remains firmly opposed to any arrangement that seeks to transfer refugees and asylum seekers to third countries in the absence of sufficient safeguards and standards. The statement goes on to say that such arrangements simply shift asylum responsibilities, evade international obligations, and are contrary to the letter and spirit of the Refugee Convention. In 2022, the European Court of Human Rights, the ECHR, had stopped the very first airplane that was departing from UK to Rwanda with the first batch of illegal migrants. The ruling of the ECHR also barred the UK from removing migrants through such a scheme until the completion of the legal battle in Britain. And that legal battle, as explained earlier, did not go the way of the British government. So with general elections due to be held in the UK either later this year or in early 2025, immigration also has become a major political issue. The opposition Labour Party has also made immigration one of the biggest campaign talking points. They have criticised Sunak's Rwanda bill for being inhumane and ineffective, saying that it just ends up bleeding Britain financially and does not ensure that illegal migrants are dealt with in a humane way. The debate on illegal immigration in Britain comes even as countries throughout Western Europe and even in America are looking for ways to slow down the rising number of migrants. Remember, people are fleeing for a variety of reasons. Sometimes it's war, climate change, political oppression. All of this forces people away from their homes. In the UK, the number of migrants arriving in Britain on small boats paying tens of thousands of dollars and oftentimes in very, very difficult and dangerous circumstances, over 45,000 of them came to the UK in such small boats in 2022. And this is just compared to a few hundred from 5 years earlier. People are seeking refuge, they're paying criminal gangs thousands of dollars to ferry them across the English Channel. Rishi Sunak has now said that the first flights to Rwanda would take off in the next 10 to 12 weeks. That is despite the possibility of an ECHR challenge and also a political challenge by the Labour Party at the hustings. So the question now is, will this be the one silver bullet which will rescue a deeply unpopular Sunak government? That is going to be the decision of the British people, and that could come later this year or early next year. But current poll numbers belie any hope for Sunak and the Conservatives.